This week's feature movie is Something in the Dirt. Aaron Morehead and Justin Benson are the creative duo behind Spring, The Endless. I think they directed an episode of Loki and Moon Knight.
That's right.
Yeah, these guys have done a lot of work. So their latest movie is about a pair of, I guess, new friends. They've recently come across an unexplained event, and it's probably 2021, 2022, 22. It's a current movie. So when that happens, you record it and you try to make money off it. You monetize
Hell
it.
yeah.
So Something in the Dirt. Um, this stars Morehead and Benson. Very small cast. I thought that's a very brave choice when you write, direct, produce a movie, and you star in it. That's never a good thing. But these two, they just have a natural chemistry that comes with years of working together, I would assume.
Yeah, they tend to pull it off actually. And then not to jump way ahead, but they even acknowledge that this kind of was about making a movie with their friends, you know.
Yeah,
And you can tell, you know, like you said, extremely insular cast, real character like growth and change, and lots of just like you said, it would be really hard to do if you weren't like pretty good at it already. Morehead and Benson.
yeah, they do a really good job. Like the characters are interesting in that, I mean, they literally have just first met at the
Oh,
beginning of the movie.
nothing in common.
Yeah, absolutely nothing at all. And the cool thing about and spoiler, we'll talk a little bit about the movie, but we won't get ruin it for anybody. Um, Even from the very beginning, there's like this push and pull, like a passive aggressive, more one person towards the other more so.
Mhm.
But they never seem to be on the same page completely.
Yeah, the you're kind of the fun thing to watch throughout this movie. A good 2 hour movie, right? This is like hour 50 something minutes.
Yeah, it's about 2 hours. Yeah.
So and you're kind of set up with like, okay, well, something happened and we're gonna kind of watch as things develop. And yeah, you're left with basically watching these two guys get to know each other. And then there's an odd like conflict there kind of from the get-go. And so as there are moments of them kind of like coming together and getting along more, it's endearing actually. You're like, oh, look, they're
Yeah.
actually getting along, you know. So I actually thought that was really good, even though there's kind of like this obviously underlying kind of like tension, I guess you might say.
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, there's a lot of dishonesty going on both parts.
Very much so, yeah.
The We talked about this a few weeks ago, and I think this movie was a great example of it about Los Angeles, Southern California being the setting for genre movies, but not the big bombastic things, kind of the more personal, conspiracy laden stories. I thought the setting and these two characters, and this basically takes place in an apartment complex, like
Right.
for the vast majority of it. Um, I thought it added to the feel of I mean, you don't know what's real and what's not, and what to believe, and I absolutely love that about this movie.
Yeah, I really agree. One of my favorite things about it, I'm glad you brought it up, is like it's one of the ways that like David Lynch he's kind of got a knack for like showing you how like the gritty underbelly of LA.
Right,
And this movie does not, in no way is LA presented glamorous, you know. This
right.
is like the real LA, you know. This is
Mhm.
an apartment at the bottom of a hill that you can't see over, and there's a fire over there, and you're just, you know. And I love that it totally made the city, you know. We say this, the setting can, and in a movie like this, it's important that it's a character, can be.
Yeah,
And it very much is, you know. You don't feel like this is the LA of dreams come true. This is the LA of dreams have failed. And
mhm.
it's perfectly illustrated.
Yeah. I think because whenever you're dealing with LA, you're either going to get like the glitz and glamour, makes absolute sense, or you're going to get the exact opposite, where it's just like crime ridden, and they go into like the poorer neighborhoods and things like that. It's very, very rare that you get that like middle ground. I don't mean middle class ground. I mean just like
No.
the normal people who are
Right.
just living check by check, and they're
Oh yeah.
not necessarily, they're definitely not rich, they're nowhere near, but they're not poor, but they're struggling to get by. But it's something you don't see very often about LA, and I think it adds to this type of story because of what it is that they're trying to do and everything that they're going through.
Yeah.
um, there's also this dry humor that goes throughout the entire movie that it almost makes it feel like they're riffing at times. They're just kind of, they're just, having a conversation with each other, and they're going back and forth.
Yeah, I love they've always had really great like screen chemistry, um and this one they give you such, like you said, they're such different characters, and there's not one time you feel like these guys, there's like two guys acting, right? Like this is like very much feels like very natural conversation, and the way stuff gets kind of brought up and the way people one of them reacts, like I really love their interaction. And we talk about it again, we bring certain things up on this podcast a lot, and it's because it's true. Like if you have a small cast and you have like this kind of character, like centric vibe, yeah, you have to be doing that well. You have to be believable. Otherwise it just really falls apart. We watched that one movie like with the girls in the apartment in the city, and the baby fell out the window or whatever. Like it was just like
Mm.
none of their chemistry worked, like that. Not one time did I believe that they would like cared about each other or had been in a relationship for a long time. Like these guys felt like they just got to know each other, and they were getting to know each other, and
Mhm.
then they kind of became partners in this kind of crazy venture. And it all, what sells this movie is the believability of their interactions.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, and then you said it perfectly. If you're going to go with a small cast, and sometimes, that's just what the story dictates, then that means you're going to put extra attention on the characters and the acting and the script.
Yeah.
So you have to bring it. Like, you absolutely
Yeah.
have to bring it. And there's a number of different ways that you can do that. You can be really bombastic and tell this crazy story and go special effects laden, or you can go like this isn't a special effects laden movie at all. Like, you go a little more human, a little more grounded, a little more natural, and then you do everything that you can to get that over with the audiences. And
Hmm.
I mean, it works here really well. Um, the movie, we're talking about, the characters and everything else, but there is a mystery going on throughout this
Yeah.
entire movie. And we said it's a 2 hour movie, but it starts right from the beginning. It doesn't take long to get into the
No.
mystery, and then it's the center for the entire movie. Like, did that mystery engage you?
It did. It did in a weird way. Kind of like
Right.
how all their movies engage me in like this weird, like The Endless was probably the one I struggled with the most,
Right.
but I still found it engaging. And this was kind of similar to The Endless in a way. Not in a bad way. Like it's only trickles breadcrumbs,
Yeah.
and then there's kind of like these info kind of drops as people are thinking it's one thing or the other, and those were fun, but they never actually answer any questions.
Right.
And again, kind of like talking about the other movie, it's like there are certain things this movie does that I just don't think are going to sit well with certain people in the audience. Was it engaging? Absolutely. Does it does it satisfy that engagement in a way? Yeah, it's, to me it did, but I don't know, some others might feel differently.
And yeah, and you mentioned the previous movie. This movie is similar in that it's very much about, I don't know if emotion is there's some actually some pretty powerful scenes in it though. It's very much, it's more of a character study than it is this ride.
Right.
Like, you're absolutely watching it for the characters. I actually watched this with my mom, and she's very much like Marvel movies, blockbusters. Like, she likes rom-coms. Like, she's,
Right.
she doesn't like to think too hard when she's watching movies. So we're putting this on, and then we started at like, I don't know, 8 o'clock or something. And then after 30, 45 minutes, she's like, you know what, I think I'm gonna go to sleep. And then, like, she made herself a drink, and she comes back in, and she watched more of it, and she was like, I can go to sleep. And she's like, I'll have one more drink and I'll go to sleep. So she sat there and watched the whole thing. Like, she was definitely into it. And then she said something that I thought was very funny. She said, I understand what they're doing, I don't understand everything that's happening, but I like what they did. So I
Yeah.
guess my mom is very much, and I'm not saying I'm just a guy who watches movies too, but my mom is very much like the average theater goer. Like she just watches movies to turn off her brain and have something. Everything is a background movie to her.
Sure.
Everything, whether it's a Marvel movie
I
or
love
the
that actually.
Crown, she'll throw on anything in the background. But she sat there and watched this movie, and yeah, she would move around a lot too.
She
But
was engaged though. She
it
was engaged.
engaged her. Like I think one of the things you brought up is that they lots of breadcrumbs. They're dropping lots of ideas about it.
Yeah.
I think for some people it will turn them off because I don't know a lot about the history of Los Angeles, but I have heard like conspiracy theories about if you look at a map, an overhead map, it makes this sort of design, and
Yeah.
there's like a million conspiracy theories
And the
about
Black
Los.
Dahlia was killed on one of the points. And
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, stupid shit like that, like or interesting shit depending on how you look at it.
Hmm.
But I think it does require not in-depth knowledge, just the realization that there is something going on with Los Angeles, or that there has been talks of something going on with Los Angeles, because they reference all kinds of stuff in it, and it can be overwhelming because, like you said, they just dump it on you with
Oh, yeah.
intercut scenes and stuff. And I thought it was really cool, but I'd also I'm by no means am I any expert on the occult history of Los Angeles, but I've seen movies here and there, and I've read an article on the internet and stuff. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that about this movie. I'm like a history, kind of buff person. Like I like weird history. I'll buy all those books, kind of stuff, watch all those shows. The hidden, architecture of, whatever. I love all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff. And so I really like that aspect of this. Personally, again, I think this is a movie that's going to be like, if you had any interest in that stuff, you're like, ooh, yay, cool, I like this is fun. If this is not, if you're like, history schmistery, I don't, Da Vinci Code, blah blah blah, like,
yeah,
it's gonna lose you like immediately.
and it actually is literally brought up in the. I do
Yeah,
not want to
like,
make a Da
yeah, like,
Vinci.
yeah, exactly.
Straight up comes up. There is one of the things that I do that I think might alleviate some of that is one of the characters. It becomes kind of a study and obsession also. And one of the characters starts mentioning how they're seeing shapes everywhere and things like that. So even if you have no interest or never knew anything about like the wacky history of Los Angeles, I think little things like that will kind of draw you into the story. And also there's the whole what actually is going on here.
Yeah,
I think that's what interested my mom in it.
yeah, which is like the overarching mystery is a fun one, and
Absolutely.
it is a wild ride. And yeah, I don't think it the way it ends does not leave you hanging in any other way than the fun of your imagination, really.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the ending too, because it's satisfying is
Yeah.
subjective or not, but it does close the circle of these
Right.
particular lives.
Yes.
It tells you everything that you need to know about this particular time in these two
Right.
people's lives. And I appreciated that very much, but it still leaves enough to the imagination to where you wonder what's going on and what's going to happen.
Yeah, it still made you go, like, yeah, well, that like you said, this chapter is closed, but do we know anything more ultimately? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So something in the dirt. It's on video on demand right now. See or no see?
I think you should see something in the dirt. I mean, if you're a fan of old Heathrow and was it Morehead and Benson,
Heathrow.
I was like
That's
Heathrow and Judge. I don't, I don't know, Morehead and Benson. I mean, if you're a fan of their films, I think you're gonna really like this. I think this is more really good filmmaking from them, and kind of like what Pat was just saying, like if you're into like this kind of like weird history, interesting mystery, yeah, I think this is a really great watch and a lot of fun. Slow paced, prepare for that.
yeah. I think this is along the lines of some of their other works. or all of their other works actually, but I think I found this one to be the most easy to watch. I enjoyed this very much. It does drop a lot of information on you. It does.
Yeah.
And it is slow. It is slow, especially based on the beginning. It looks like it's going in one direction, and it does go in that direction, but it's very much about two people and what's going on in their life. So I would suggest it, but much like The Wonder, I would say be prepared. But this one I think is a little more accessible.